Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm really privileged to be here today, and just a few recognitions before I begin my speech. I'm blown away by this tonight, and I want to talk a lot about that because it's really inspired me in public service, the legacy of Jack Kemp. But a couple people I do want to recognize, obviously the Kemp family, and thank you for awarding me this here tonight, and for the folks that work for the foundation. It's great to have my wife Jeanette here, who's here all the way from Miami. It's her birthday tomorrow. I can't think of anything more romantic to celebrate her birthday than a Kemp dinner, and so I think. And I want to say a few words. Paul Ryan, last year's recipient, is someone who I've gotten to know. And Paul, thank you for your invitation for lunch in Iowa and New Hampshire. But I will not stand to watch the people of South Carolina ignored. All kidding aside, when I was running for the U.S. Senate, very few people believed I could win. Literally, most of the people that believed I could win all lived in my home. And 4 of them were under the age of 10. Paul Ryan was one of the only people in Washington that came to my assistance, and I will never forget that. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that very much. Well, I'm so honored to be receiving this award tonight, named after truly one of the great visionaries of the modern conservative movement in America. And I think I echo everyone's comments here, everyone's thoughts when I say we could sure use Jack Kemp right now. Sadly, Jack Kemp's not here, but his ideas and the principles behind him are. And they are useful to us as we begin to confront the great economic challenges and the opportunities that our nation currently faces. The existence of a large and vibrant American middle class, that goes to the very essence of America's exceptional identity. You see, every country in the world has rich people, but only a few places have achieved a vibrant and stable middle class. And in the history of the world, none has been more vibrant and more stable than the great American middle class. One of the fundamental promises of America is the opportunity to make it to the middle class. But today, as Paul Ryan correctly pointed out, there's this growing opportunity gap developing. And millions of Americans worry that they may never achieve middle-class prosperity and stability, and they worry that their children will be trapped as well, with the same life and the same problems. For those of us like Paul Ryan and I who are blessed with the opportunity to serve our country and government, one fundamental challenge is before us is to find an appropriate and sustainable role for government in closing that gap between the dreams of millions of Americans and the opportunities for them to realize them. The key to a vibrant middle class is an abundance of jobs that pay enough so that workers can provide for themselves and their families, enjoy leisure time, save for retirement, and pay for their children's education so they can grow up and earn even more than their parents. But today, too many Americans cannot find jobs like these. In fact, some cannot find any jobs at all. There are 2 main reasons for this. First, a weakened American economy is not creating enough jobs of any kind, especially middle-class jobs. And second, we have a skills shortage. Frankly, too many Americans do not have the skills they need to do the new middle-class jobs of the 21st century. The path to a prosperous and growing American middle class is the combination of a vibrant economy that creates these middle-class jobs and the people with the skills needed for these new jobs. And the federal government can play an important and positive role in encouraging a vibrant economy and in equipping our people with the skills they need for 21st century middle-class jobs. Federal policies on the national debt, taxes, and regulations all have a tremendous impact on economic growth and on middle-class job creation. Our $16 trillion debt and the lack of a plan to fix it scares people from investing in opening or growing a business. They're afraid of getting hit with a massive tax increase in the future to pay off this debt. One of the leading causes of our growing future debt is the way Medicare is currently designed for the future. And that's why we must reform and save Medicare as soon as possible. Because the sooner we act, the likelier we can do it without making any changes for people who are currently in the system, like Paul Ryan's mother and like my mother. And our complicated and uncertain tax code is also hindering the creation of middle-class jobs. You can't open or grow a business if your taxes are too high or too uncertain. And that's why I personally opposed the President's plan to raise taxes. Listen, this isn't about a pledge. It isn't about protecting millionaires and billionaires. For me, it's about the fact that tax increases he wants would fail to make even a small dent in the debt, but it would hurt middle-class businesses and the people who work for them. Over half of the private sector workers in America work for the kind of companies the President's plan may raise taxes on. Instead, we should follow the example set by Jack Kemp, who laid the foundation for the Economic Recovery Act of 1981 that helped usher in the strong economic recovery under President Reagan's first term. We should keep rates low on everyone, end the multiple taxation of savings, simplify our tax code by getting rid of unjustified loopholes, and generate new revenue by creating new taxpayers, not new taxes. Rapid economic growth. Rapid economic growth is the only way to generate the kind of money we need to bring this debt under control. And tax increases do not create new taxpayers, and they do not create rapid economic growth. Excessive regulations are also impeding a middle-class job creation. Now look, regulation is necessary to protect our natural environment, to keep our food and medicine safe, to ensure fair competition and the fair treatment of. But regulations cost money to follow. And the more expensive a regulation is, the less money a business has left to give raises or hire new people. So we need to have a balanced approach to regulations. We have to weigh the benefit of any given regulation against the impact it will have on job creation. And that's why we should implement something like Senator Paul's REINS Act, so that if a regulation is going to cost the economy over $100 million, Congress gets the final say on it, not an unelected and unaccountable bureaucrat. Getting control of our debt, reforming our federal tax code and regulations, these things are critically important. But it is not enough. We need to do more. For example, we should expand our domestic energy industry. American innovation has given us access to massive new deposits of oil and natural gas, making America one of the most energy-rich countries on the planet. This new energy wealth means all kinds of new middle-class jobs, from the fields and platforms where we drill, to the manufacturing plants that will return to the United States with a lower cost of energy. And these are just the types of jobs we need most right now. Well-paying, middle-class work that doesn't require an expensive advanced degree and that contributes to the strength of our economy. We need to take full advantage of this by approving the Keystone Pipeline, by tearing down unnecessary regulatory barriers, to tapping our own energy sources, and by opening more federal land to safe and responsible exploration. Sound monetary policy would also encourage middle-class job creation. The arbitrary way in which interest rates and our currency are treated is yet another cause of instability injected right into our economy. The Federal Reserve should publish and follow a clear monetary rule to provide greater stability about prices and what the value of a dollar will be over time. Getting control of the debt, reforming our taxes and regulations, growing our energy industry, and predictable monetary policy are 5 concrete things the federal government can do to help our economy create new middle-class jobs. But if the higher wages people make at these jobs is offset by an increase in the cost of living, well, then we're just running in place. And nothing is taking a bigger chunk out of the budgets of our middle-class families than the cost of health care. We must provide the conditions for people to get the health coverage they need in an affordable way. Now, one way to make health care more affordable is a flexible savings account that allows families to save tax-free money to pay for medical bills. Now, as a federal employee with 4 young kids who, let me just say, have had their share of accidents, I'm blessed to have the option, which I use to pay for our co-payments and my 12-year-old daughter's braces and out-of-pocket costs of medicine. And I wish more Americans had the chance to have a savings account like that, just like their members of Congress do. And that's why we should all be shocked that Obamacare cuts the amount you can contribute to this from $5,000 to $2,500. And here's what else Obamacare did. It now requires you to get a prescription from a physician to purchase over-the-counter medications and pay for it from your FSA. So get this, if I want to buy some Advil with my FSA, I now need my doctor's permission. In addition to promoting flexible savings accounts, we should create a health insurance system that focuses on empowering people, not bureaucracies. People should be able to buy a health care plan that fits their needs and budgets from any insurance company in America sell it to them. And they should be able to buy it with tax-free money, just like their employers buy it for many of them now. We should also expand the number of community health centers, as well as work with hospitals to find the best way to integrate them with their emergency rooms, to try and get non-life-threatening walk-ins to seek treatment there. These are just a few of the things we could do at the federal level to create the conditions for middle-class job creation and stabilize the growth in the cost of living. But no matter how many middle-class jobs are created, you cannot grow the middle class if people do not have the skills to get hired for these jobs. And not so long ago, even if you didn't graduate from high school, if you were willing to work, you could find a job that paid enough for you to buy a home and start a family and eventually send your kids to college and a better life. But those days are long gone, and they're probably not coming back. Today, education plays a central role in the 21st century knowledge economy. For example, four-year college graduates, they earn almost 70% more than those without such a degree. That doesn't mean that everyone has to have a four-year degree from a university in order to get ahead. I'm proud that my hometown, Miami, is the home of Miami-Dade College, one of our nation's pioneers in education for work programs. Years ago, they set up numerous work training programs by working with employers to design the curriculum and provide mentoring and internship opportunities. Even if you don't go to the traditional college route, you can secure a good living by earning an education that is customized to your interests and to your strengths. So what are the things the federal government can do in education? Well, first, our elementary and secondary schools need state-level curriculum reform and a new investment in continuing teacher training. And we have an opportunity to do some of that through the 2013 reauthorization of the Higher Education Act to make some of these major improvements. Second, the public school system for millions of disadvantaged American children is a disaster. Many of these schools deny opportunity to those who need it most. We need to allow charter schools and other innovative schools to flourish. And the key to that is empowering parents. Parents should be the ultimate decision makers on where their children go to school. Unfortunately, poor and working class parents often have no choice whatsoever about what schools their children can attend. In America, all of our parents should be able to send their children to the school of their choice. And for parents with special needs children, the freedom to choose their kids' school is especially important. By the way, our tax code should also reward investment in education. If you invest in a business by buying a machine, you get a tax credit for the cost. If there's a tax credit for investing in equipment, shouldn't there be a tax credit for investing in people? Let's provide tax encouragement to help parents pay for the school of their choice. Let's create a corporate federal tax credit to a qualifying nonprofit 501c3 education scholarship organization so that students from low-income families can receive a scholarship to pay for the cost of a private education of their parents' choosing. And let's encourage career, technical, and vocational education. Why can't more of our students graduate with a high school diploma and an industry certification in a trade or in a career? And let's find ways for our returning veterans to put the skills they developed in the armed forces to use in civilian job opportunities. One more thing, let's look at ways to address soaring college costs and encourage skill development that doesn't require the traditional four-year college route. You know, the groundswell of creativity and technological change will lead to dramatic reductions in the time and expense of higher education so long as government financial policy doesn't stand in the way. We should make sure that our federal aid programs do not discriminate against online course credits and help give parents and students more choices. And finally, we need to reform our federal college grant and loan programs. Now, to me, college affordability is an issue that's very, very personal. Because the only reason why I was able to go to college, the only reason, was because of federal grants and loans. And when I graduated from law school, I had close to $150,000 in student debt. That's a debt I just paid off last year with the proceeds of my book, An American Son, which is the perfect holiday gift, and it's available on Amazon. Perfect holiday, available on Amazon for $11.99. But anyway, let's explore integrating the Pell Grant program with our tax system. And before they take out a student loan, let's make sure students and their parents know how long it's going to take for them to complete their education, what their likelihood of completion is, how much they can expect to make after graduation, and how much their monthly payment on the loan is going to be. The Know Before You Go Act, which I co-sponsored with Senator Wyden of Oregon, would ensure that future students and their families can make a well-informed decision by having access to information about things like expected post-graduation earning potential and how long it will take for them to pay off their student loans. The bottom line is we are trying to prepare 21st century students using a century education model. Now is the time to be creative and innovative and daring in reforming the way we provide our people the skills they need to make it to the middle class. Now, beyond education, and Paul touched on this, and I want to reemphasize it, beyond education, there's another obstacle that is keeping too many young Americans from moving ahead. Many young Americans do not have the skills they need to get a middle-class job because they grew up in an unstable environment. They live in broken and often violent homes, in substandard housing, in a dangerous neighborhood, with poor nutrition and no access to primary health care. Often they're being raised by heroic single parents and sometimes an elderly grandmother. And they may not have a chance to participate in after-school activities because their parents can't afford the fees and they can't get out of work in time to take them. Rising above these circumstances is possible. Every day, some amazing parents and caretaker grandparents are overcoming all of this to give these kids the chance at a better life. But the research on this topic has consistently found that children raised in tough circumstances struggle in comparison with children raised in more stable family settings. They face higher risks of falling into poverty, failing in school, or emotional and behavioral problems. They have lower scores on standardized tests, lower grades, and a much higher chance of dropping out of high school or failing to attend college. Widespread societal breakdown is not something the government can solve. And yet it's something the government cannot ignore. Because you cannot separate the economic well-being of your people from their social well-being. What the federal government can do to confront societal breakdown is limited. But it's important. And rather than pretend that we know the answer, we should do as Paul Ryan suggests, finding those who do important work every day and mentoring young people and leading them on the right path. Their teachers, their coaches, their parents, their priests, and their pastors. Government leaders should take part and encourage a national conversation about the importance of civil society institutions and leaders in creating the social infrastructure needed for success. We should look at churches and faith-based organizations in the community as part of the solution. Kids joining the Boy Scouts and being involved in a church's youth group aren't just nice things for them to do. One day it might have a real impact on their standard of living and ultimately on our national economy. And by the way, let's protect our safety net programs, not as a way of life, but as a way to help those who have failed to stand up and try again, and of course, as always, as a way to help those who cannot help themselves. But these programs must be reformed, reform to enhance family stability and financial opportunity, education, and a culture of work. Perhaps the most important thing and effective thing we can do in government about societal breakdown is acknowledge the impact that it's having. Ask any of the amazing teachers we are blessed to have here in America. I have 4 of them in my own family, and they are on the front lines of this problem every single day. They will be the first to tell you that every single day, kids bring their home experience into the classroom. Every day, these teachers see firsthand how kids living in dysfunctional homes are going to really struggle to make it. And as a people, we cannot build a vibrant and broad-based middle class if we do not solve this problem. Now, my parents immigrated here with few skills, limited education, and no money. They worked in the service industry almost their entire life here. On almost any other nation on earth, those jobs would barely provide a daily living, much less a better future. But in America, my parents made enough money to buy their own home and own a car. They felt so confident about the future that in their 40s, they had 2 children, me in 1971 and my sister in 1973. We never had everything we wanted, but we always had more than we needed. And most importantly, we had a strong family living in a safe and stable home with parents who loved each other, made sure we knew they loved us, and encouraged us to dream. They made it very clear that because we were Americans, we could go as far as our talent and our hard work would take us. My father grew up poor and motherless with limited education. My mother lived in a home with dirt floors in rural Cuba, raised by a disabled father who struggled to bring home food every night. But their children now live lives so far removed from where they came from, not so long ago. The 4 children of an uneducated working-class immigrant couple from Cuba are all college graduates, working in a professional field, and enjoying a standard of living significantly higher than our parents. Our story is not rare in America, but it's rare in the world. Had we been born almost anywhere else at any other time in history, our lives would have been very different. I probably would have been a very opinionated bartender, for example. But instead, I was born and raised in late 20th century America, where our economy produced jobs for relatively low-skilled workers like my parents, and where those jobs paid them enough for them to make it into the middle class, where the government helped me and my siblings pay for college, and where today all 4 of us live a life much better than our parents. Because of where I was raised and who I was raised by, I know that what we have here in this country is special. It is the exception rather than the rule. And if we lose it, there is nothing to replace it. If America declines, so will the world. Today, the journey my parents made from poor immigrants to working middle class is much harder than it was in their time, because the world has changed. The economy has changed. Our society has changed. But whether or not the journey my parents made is still possible to all who are willing to work for it, that's going to decide whether we decline or remain that special place. For nothing represents how special America is more than our middle class. And our challenge and our opportunity now is to create the conditions to allow it not just to survive, but to grow. And government has a role to play. And we must make sure that it does its part. But it's a supporting role to help create the conditions that enable prosperity in our private economy. That's a crucial role, but a necessarily limited one. It can't substitute for what is meant to enable a thriving, free economy. It is not the ever-expanding reach of government, but rather having access to the benefits of a thriving economy that allows the poor to rise into the middle class, not by making rich people poorer, but by making poor people richer. And to do that, we need a limited and effective government. And you cannot have one without the other. Big government is not effective government. Big government has never worked. The promise of more government is the answer to all our problems. It's easy to sell. But when you put it in practice, it fails and has failed every single time. Because big government has never been able to create and sustain a vibrant and stable middle class. And if any people on earth should know that, because for most of us, we need to look no further than our own communities to see where the answers to our challenges lie. It starts with strong and stable families. It continues with a vibrant civil society filled with people working together to improve their country, and with a thriving free enterprise economy that creates good-paying jobs and can draw upon people with the skills to do those jobs. Government's role is to support those institutions and those policies that strengthen the family and the community, to implement pro-growth policies that support a vibrant free enterprise economy that creates those middle-class jobs, and to provide access to schools that teach our people the skills they need to fill those jobs. The emergence of a strong, vibrant, and growing 21st century American middle class is the answer to the most pressing challenges we face. Think about it. Millions of Americans with jobs that pay more means more buyers for our products, more customers for our businesses, and more taxpayers for our government. The more they spend, the more jobs they create for others, who in turn spend their money into the economy as well. And if you have that, then even with low and stable tax rates, the taxes they will pay mean new revenue for our government to provide for the national defense, fund our safety net, and pay down our debt. And if we are determined to remain an exceptional nation, this is the only way forward. And if we embrace it, the promise of the 21st century is extraordinary. The United States will soon be the world's largest producer of energy. The emergence of affordable American natural gas will allow manufacturing to return in force to our shores again. American innovation promises to revolutionize healthcare, communications, and transportation. And every year, millions of people in the world are entering the middle class, now able to afford the things we invent and build, hire us to provide services, and take trips here to visit our tourist destinations. If we make the right choices now, life in America can be better than it has ever been. Now, I've heard it suggested that the problem is that the American people have changed, that too many people want things from government. But I'm still convinced that the overwhelming majority of our people, they just want what my parents had, a chance. A real chance to earn a good living and provide even better opportunities for their children. A few weeks ago, I was giving a speech at a fancy hotel in New York City. When I arrived in the banquet hall, I was approached by a group of 3 uniformed employees like the ones that are working here tonight from the hotel's catering department. They had seen my speech at the Republican convention where I told the story about my father, the banquet bartender, and they had a gift for me. They presented me with this name tag, which says Rubio, banquet bartender. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me that there are millions of Mario Rubios all across America today. They are not looking for a handout. All they want is a job that provides for their families. But there just aren't enough jobs out there like that. And many of them do not have the skills they need for the jobs that are available. All they want is a chance to earn a better life for themselves and a better future for their children. And whether they get that chance or not, will determine whether America remains exceptional or whether America declines. But it all starts with our people. In the kitchens of our hotels, in the landscaping crews that work in our neighborhoods, in the late night shifts that clean our offices. That's where you'll find the dreams that America was built on. That's where you'll find the promise of tomorrow. Their journey is our nation's destiny. And if they can give their children what our parents gave us, 21st century America will be the single greatest nation that man has ever known. So thank you so much. God bless all of you for having me tonight. Thank you.